Okay, and hello there, everyone, for the second neurodivergence talk that I am doing for the day. I hope you're all having a fantastic time. Today, I'm being joined by MaplePixels over here. Thank you for stopping on by.
Hi. Hi.
How are you doing? Hope you're having a good day.
Pretty chill life so far. Got up about an hour ago.
All right, I need to send you the thing for Pixel Chat now, too, so that way your captions get picked up as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it should be that link. I believe you just need to click it and you'll join.
Sounds good.
And while we getting that set up, there we go. There we go. But yeah, I guess first up for all of this is what is your neurodivergence and are you diagnosed or undiagnosed? I've mentioned this in our group chat, but as a refresher, I am myself diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder.
Two, I am undiagnosed ADHD, but diagnosed depression since early teens. I want to say 12 was when I was diagnosed. ADHD, unfortunately, not. Yeah, that's more for me. How long I've known as an adult? Probably now as a young adult.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are finding out they are.
Yeah.
And they look back to their childhood and they went, hey, I feel like I ran a lot more hurdles than everybody else, and I'm trying to understand why.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Another thing I'm also going to mention is I am hard of hearing. That's a disability I have. So I think I'm going to bring that up a couple of times because it does play effect into how I was kind of misdiagnosed, but also just they saw one solution and stuck with it for most of my adolescence and went, that's the reason they're having issues with learning and adapting, and didn't decide to ask any more questions about it. So that's going to come up maybe once or twice in a couple of stories. But back to you.
Yeah,
How long have you known?
I've known since I was my parents knew since I was kindergarten, but I was never told myself what was going on. Until I was in middle school. I was a young kid. I wouldn't have understood at the time anyways. No. So it's
trying to comprehend that.
Yeah.
Was trying to explain to my help. My mom just went like, you're just getting more help, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. That's it. All right, cool.
Yeah, as far as I knew, I was just a weird kid. Some things came to me easier on the school side than others, and social stuff I was clueless on, but I didn't think anything of it as a kid. I didn't understand what disabilities, disorders were, so it was of no mind to me when I was 5 or 7 or whatever.
As a child, you're not really observant to your own social cues because you're just like, I understand. I just have to behave. I have to follow this one very large one very tall human being who, sergeants a whole class and whatnot. And we're walking around like we're scouts and we're trying to get through it together.
Yeah.
How comfortable are you talking about your neurodiversity?
I find myself pretty comfortable myself, which is why why I wanted to get something like this set up. Is I have my own comfortability with all of this, and wanted to also hear from other people who share whatever they're comfortable saying with as well.
Especially since it's such a big umbrella now that a lot of people are understanding that it's like, oh, there's more to this, and it's so big and there's different tiers of comfortabilities and whatnot. If you would have asked me as a teenager would I have been open up about this, hell no. I was very much I didn't want to share any of that, but now being an adult and going back and whatnot. I'm like you now, where I want people to be aware that they're not alone. They're not alone in any of that, because I think if I had more people I knew, then my mental illness stayed in the closet longer than I did, and that's what I'm learning. So, yeah, it's really hard, and it's also something that, I don't know, I thought I had to be ashamed of, that I couldn't be like other kids, because that was the expectation, especially when you're in a school of other neurotypicals, or people who are neurodivergent and just, don't know. Like me, you're like, man, I didn't want to fit in. Like, I didn't want to, ride the current to be popular or anything like that. I just wanted to feel like I still belonged in and around societies and around social circles and whatnot, and still be accepted as I come.
Yeah, no, and
for you.
Yeah, I know, like, you brought up before, like, the finding out thing. I feel like a lot of people I know who weren't diagnosed as a kid and later on in adulthood look back on things, start to relate to people who've been diagnosed and open about this for a while, will be like, oh, was this what's been going on this whole time? Oh.
Yeah, it's... I heard a comedian say it like this. It's just like, I knew your mental illness is like your middle name. I know you have one. I just don't know what it is. Like, it was something I so related to, and again, it's funny enough how I've kind of got it picked out. Here's also another thing that, like, a lot of people misconception is, like, it can be genetic. It's simple biology, grade 7. You learn about that,
Yeah.
I have a chance of it, and I am a family of 6. I have 6 siblings.
Oh, wow.
And I'm the eldest. And it wasn't until child 3 and 4, and now 6, all on the spectrum. I have ADHD, and then autism as well, is what we're finding out. But he's going to the proper schools to get verbal.
Okay.
And whatnot. But it wasn't until these 2 that, like, I started getting handed brochures, and I'm like reading through it. I'm like, got it. Damn it. And then my 4th one started calling out my stimming patterns, because she's going to, like, therapy and all that jazz. And again, there's a 12 age gap between me and 4. So she's got, current diagnosis stuff, where for me, I didn't have that. There wasn't much difference. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it is, like, definitely, like, a research proven thing, like you said, like, genetics play a heavy factor in it all. Like, if one person in the family has autism, ADHD, or, like, some other neurodivergencies, good chance other people in that family have it too.
It's just math, man. It's percentages. It's the same thing where, I'm the only ginger person in my family, but it still can happen. There's still a probability to play an effect and whatnot. And if you could tell me, what are some things that your day-to-day looks like with your neurodivergency?
It's definitely a lot different now versus when I was a kid. Not just because one was school life and the other is work life, but it's just kind of like, I'll say for now, it's not too impactful for me necessarily. Like, there's just sometimes of, like, the executive dysfunction showing up, where I have in my mind, okay, I've got this one important thing I need to do, and I'm gonna make sure to fill some time in for it. And then it just 2 weeks pass by and it's not done yet.
Yeah, you put those mental expectations, and
Yeah.
you're just like riding that
Yeah.
coattail the whole way through.
Yeah, so I have to kind of like just force myself somehow to get it done. Like one thing, like building up the habits to make sure I have a schedule that I stick to some degree at least. So it's like wake up, I have plenty of time before work. That's when I get my workout in. Then it's breakfast. Then it's I get into work. Find some other stuff I have scheduled for myself in between that at specific hours. And if an interruption ever shows up for me, if I'm ever knocked off my groove on anything, I just don't know what to do. And
Yeah,
I just
you
get
kinda just
confused.
shut down a little bit because you're like, I had a pattern, I had a system, and something threw a wrench in that system,
Yeah.
and you don't know how to. For the neurotypical, they just go, "Oh, just get back on track." Where did the rails go?
Yeah.
For me, right?
Ah, damn it, a surprise meeting? Oh no, I was in the middle of coding. Oh, what do I do now?
Yeah, I couldn't. The way I got told that ADHD was like is it's your brain is constantly moving. Your brain's constantly going through overthinking, doing everything possible. You have shit steering and no brakes. It's just going. No stops, you're just going. And I thought it was just normal that everybody, taught to themselves, played out these multiple roles. Like, I was DMing for the rest of myself on how to delegate these tasks and how to do these things. So I got it done. I had to play my little fantasies of how to get things done in a particular way. Socially, it did impact really great. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't the most popular kid in school.
Oh, same.
I was the weirdy, quirky dude. I also liked a lot of male-pointed interests, such as D&D, Magic the Gathering, all these things that were not typically girl-coded at the time, and video games as well was another thing. And that's also should have been my first clue. I hyper-focused. Massive thing. It's not normal for people to, get a brand new game like Hades and stream it or play it for 12 hours without sleep. No kidding. When it dropped, Chris, my lovely spouse, got it for me, and I played it. And our offices were, because he streams upstairs. I was downstairs at the time in our old house, and he literally went to bed, got up the next morning, and I was still playing the game. And he went, "Did you sleep at all?" And I was like, "Oh crap, that's the sun out." Because I just played it, and he went, "How far are you?" And I'm like, "Pretty far." I got pretty good progress, actually. But that's hyper-focusing. That is, if something catches your interest, it's hard to pull that away. And when our interest is pulled away from that, you feel very angry and very agitated. Another sign that often, obviously, you're going to be mad when people, throw you off your groove. But I don't know, for ADHD, it's kind of, a resentment to pull us away from what's stimming and what we're focusing on. Because even when I'm doing work or homework tasks or stuff like that, if people pulled me away out of my thing, I was easily very, very agitated and very, like, my brain was doing its 350% for 100%. How dare you?
I know it's not going to be fully the same. This is kind of like just one of those parts where autism, ADHD are comorbid. Like, you're going to find a lot of the same things between each other, but...
Same traits.
Yeah.
But different outcomes and different...
Yeah.
How they coalesce, I will say.
Yeah, there's definitely a thing for when I'm in the middle of cooking something, Like, I've got my mind on this task at hand right now. I just want to work on this. And then one of my roommates will show up and start wanting a conversation while I'm doing that. And I'm just giving bare minimum replies because I'm not prepared to engage at that moment. I'm worried about this one thing first. So everything else is being pushed to the side. I can't do both at the same time. I know I come off as rude, but I don't mean to.
No, and that's also like another thing. Like, you come off as cold, and it's like, no, you're just super focused, and they're not understanding. Yeah. Like, you can't do, like, some people are great at multitasking. There are certain things that I feel like I can multitask, but there are certain things, like you mentioned, cooking or, daily chores that you're like, if I don't do this, it's never going to get done, or I'm going to forget about it, and then I'd be like, crap, I missed it. Okay. And that's even funny that you bring that up, because, again, I mentioned I have a spouse, and he likes to, walk up behind me and, hold me and be cute in the kitchen, and I'm like, I'm working here. I'm in my groove. You can't do that. And obviously, he's not being malice or anything, but there's times where I have to be like, back off. Back. Because I'm in a way, and unfortunately, also, like, I was brought up with a very particular OCD kind of mom narcissism where like I had to get stuff done in a particular manner, and recently I've learned that like I kept that into adulthood, and I'm trying to get that mindset away from me, because chores shouldn't make me feel angry. Doing daily tasks shouldn't make me, want to listen to metal and destroy the whole thing, because doing simple tasks are very hard, and again, weren't done on my schedule. It was done on somebody else's expectation. So I had to kind of be like, hey, well, I'm in this workstation, no cutesy time. If I'm outside of this working station, you can have all the smooches and love you want. But this is like the one thing, and you gotta set boundaries, especially in your personal relationships and friendships. For example, another thing I don't like hugging random people that I don't know, or, and that's another thing that like parents would constantly be like, go hug this aunt you have not seen, who have been in the Sahara Desert for like 5 years and knew you as a baby. Go hug them. And I'd be like, no, that sounds horribly misfriend. I could do a handshake. I'm not hugging somebody I don't A, know, and B, it just doesn't feel right. And I started to learn that, like, trust people, that's also people holding me down, which again doesn't work for my stimming and my stuff like that and whatnot. And I even had a particular aunt where, like, another big like stimming thing I do is I bounce my knee, or I fidget and whatnot, and all these traits. And there's a difference between anxious and just neutral stimming. By the way, all stimming is good.
Oh yeah,
it is necessary.
This is my usual one I go to, just clicking my middle finger to my thumb.
I always love this one.
Yeah, sometimes it's doing these in specific patterns too, because I just have to have like, okay, 5, 3, 1, 4, and then 2.
Mine was, I was very much the kid that would tap the pencils on like the Skinner desk, bouncing knees, huge.
Yep.
Bouncing knees, having to tap something, and I would have a relative like put their hand on my knee to like stop it, and I'm like, just ask me, like, don't put your hands on me, just be vocal, because then other people are also gonna think that that's okay to do, and also that just teaches me, hey, you gotta hide this. That's not normal. And especially as a kid, that's what I thought it meant, was, hey, act normal, act functioning, and that is me functioning, just looks a little different. So eventually, then I started wiggling my toes in my socks and doing other things that like they can't see and whatnot. And another thing I also didn't realize that was stimming was biting lips, like biting the bottom of your lip, or doing certain things, like biting nails.
Oh,
when
yeah,
you felt
yeah.
uncomfortable, big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, sometimes
Like,
that's
these were-
also a bit into the Pika side of things, of also wanting to taste something unusual. For me, it was like chewing on the hem of my shirt or getting some piece of paper.
This lovely aluminum would be crunched down on all my pencils.
Same.
In like a second, or like, I don't know, Barbie shoes for girls, like the Polly Pocket Barbie shoes. It was the sweet spot again.
Yeah. Oh, one of the other surprisingly more common things in school. Get some glue, put it on your hand, let it dry, and then just have the sensation of peeling it off.
Self-peeling.
Yeah.
Another one was also we have something called Remembrance Day, and you get basically a poppy to wear. Fortunately for Canadian kids, we will take that pin that you just gave us and we'll try to put it between our finger skins to feel it. But obviously when you have on the spectrum, you start peeling, and then you're starting to peel your fucking skin raw, and you're like, well, now this just hurts. Now I gotta put a band-aid. Oh, congratulations, you're stinging again. And peeling something off.
Yeah, my younger brother is someone who's either on the spectrum or has ADHD. It's unclear for him, since I don't remember if he ever actually got a proper diagnosis, and that's just an assumption he has something like me. But we would both have a thing of like, get the pencil and then just kind of like start jabbing at our upper leg.
Or the mechanical ones.
Yeah, the mechanical ones to let it go all the way. And he would do it harder than I would, and he got some lead stuck in his leg for a bit because it broke off inside.
Fantastic. Amazing.
Yeah, it's not like it was super deep and caused any serious issues. It was just graphite that eventually got pushed out because it was pretty much a splinter.
It's also, it dissolves eventually
Yeah.
when it hits the stream. It's just unfortunately going to be like, that's not normal. That's pretty toxic. All right.
Yeah, it wasn't, and I also want to make clear, it's not a huge piece. It was like not even a centimeter long.
Nobody was harmed in the making of this video.
Yeah. That's why it's a fun thing to say instead of oh, this was actually a horrific time for him.
True. Yeah, so family wasn't very receptive, and it was more just like, I unfortunately had first of all, just to paint a little bit of a picture, I had separated parents from before adolescence, and I had a primary, like, parent who is narcissistic and also doesn't really believe in the mental disabilities and whatnot. And even if they got, proper explanation, they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to adjust to that norm and new outcome for the children, which is unfortunately really, really sad, and made kind of my trip into it very kind of hard, especially in the early years. One thing I do know about my school experience, I don't know what you guys have for, programs, but I was classed immediately out of kindergarten as an IPP student, which stands for Individual Personalized Program.
Oh, yeah.
That is aimed towards people with special needs.
Yeah.
And with a learning disability out the rip from pre-K. And the main reason they thought of my hyperfocusing was because of my hearing. And yes, that is correct. We went to, audiology, and they were like, yeah, your child's half deaf. And they went, oh, okay. We'll just put tubes in their ears and that'll be enough. No, I still didn't listen after that. I still didn't. It fixed some of the problem. It didn't resolve everything. But since they had, a diagnosis, it's what I worked with, it's what I understood. And I didn't get hearing aids until very later in life, which has helped a bit. It doesn't fix everything.
Yeah. I mean, if it's like an autism or ADHD thing, sounds like there's probably what audio processing disorder mixed in as well. Then,
Yeah. So and I would be pulled from like classrooms to do individual studies with other teachers, and they would be like, "Hey, this is the math you're doing." Also, just I don't know if it's a real trait or not. I feel like anybody with ADHD just hates math out the rip. It's so structural. It's so you want creative thought processing, and math is just not one of those things. Math is one answer and one solution. Obviously, you can choose how you get there, but the outcome's the same. But if you got a math problem going, hey, you have 4 apples, and I take 2, how many is? I kid you not. I could find probably my math problems. I drew out the apples and would cut them out, and that would be like my answer. And my teachers were like, you could just write 2. And I'm like, but I showed my work. That's how I thought at the time, was I needed to visually see. And that's also another thing I learned real quick, is that I was a visual learner to adapt. So a lot of my studies, they gave me like, the single blocks to learn like math. There was like groups of 10, and they'd be 100 sheets that I could pull apart, and there would be 10 in each. And they taught me strategies to do things. And then around grade 4 to about grade 9, I got shifted into another program, which again, should have been a clue, should have been a sign. And I'm starting to go into about junior high at that point, because junior high for us is 7 to 9. I understand for you guys that is very different. That is like 6 to 8.
yeah, and actually, my school district even did like 5 to 8.
There you go. But I was going to middle school, and obviously that's when your adolescence start kicking in and whatnot, and you're starting to develop your lopes and stuff, and that's the first hurdle going over that. But we started going, instead of just one by one, we're now being pulled in groups and taken to other rooms to get an extra like hour on test. You're also getting handed assignments that are 2 levels below what you're in, and etc. And this is about the time I started to puzzle in what was actually happening around me, because again, my parents just went, "You're just getting extra help." Okay, explain what kind of extra help to me. What does this mean? Unfortunately, I didn't get that explanation, so I had to start becoming a very observant kid, and an observant kid I became. And I don't know. There was part of me that loved getting extra help and extra time, but I felt like I was also missing a lot of the social aspects of staying in the main room with the rest of the classes. And again, I don't know, it just felt really segregated. And especially also on buses, because I was put not in one particular bus than the other, or whatnot, and taken to different programs, which again benefited my learning. But it feels really hard to sympathize with the conditions when you don't know what's wrong and you don't know what is the matter with you, because to my understanding, if you get, from my understanding as a kid, we fixed my hearing. Meanwhile, what we found out is the tubes dissolved and, they were gone, and my hearing went back to the same stage as they were. Because tubes do that, it doesn't fix everything. And I really needed hearing aids at that point, but we thought the solution was the solution. So that happened, and then, again, getting extra help, and then suddenly high school hits, and the teachers are gone. They're gone. They're like, "You're good. Meanwhile, what I've come to realize is they put you in specific dashes. There is different levels. There's 1, 2, and 3 for, I believe, science. And then there's 1 and 2 dash for English and social studies, your humanities, or whatever you want to call it. And I was put in every low dash, and which is fine. But I was like, I feel like I've cured it. I feel like I figured out how to be neurotypical. Meanwhile, no, I didn't. It was way harder. I had no helping hands. I didn't know how to fly. And I think if it wasn't for my spouse, that have been together for 12 years, and we've known each other since middle school, I didn't just fall ass over tea kettle on my head in school. Because I had somebody helping. Somebody who understood how I thought and whatnot. And I worked really, really hard because in grade 10, you have to get a specific grade to go into a specific science. And I loved biology. I hated physics because, again, it's just math. And you know how we don't like math. But I loved environmental. I loved chemistry. And I loved a lot of the theoretical work that goes into that stuff, the theory-wise.
Oh, same.
And I love a good theory problem. And I worked my butt off to get a specific grade. We needed a 75 to get into particular science. And at this point, I was learning. I was going in with my counselor, going back and forth like, hey, I'm doing a really good job. I'm keeping my grades up. And my average was around like a 65. Like a C- was my norm, and I was okay with it. And, B-, so 70 range. But this was particularly pretty high for me to function to this expectation. And the next year came, and I applied to be put into biology, to come to learn that if you have IPP from childhood, you cannot go into a single science because they fear that you most likely will not succeed.
Oh, damn.
And it hit me like a bag of bricks because I worked super hard. And again, my counselor was encouraging me, knowing this was going to happen. And I instantly went, I want a new counselor, and never do that to me again. And that was super discouraging to want something and work more than you function and work really hard with your conditions to suddenly just go, you can't do this, and we're not even gonna let you try. And high school since then became, honestly, my nightmare. And unfortunately, I lost another relative around that time of graduation, where I also lost a relative when I was diagnosed with depression at 12 and 11 years old. And that's the start of Kicked Off. And to kind of describe what depression does to the ADHD, it builds a very toxic cocktail that you kind of just have to swallow, because your brain wants you to be high functioning and wants you to do all these things in a matter of minutes, but your depression doesn't want to let you function at all. Your depression, and a lot of people think that it's just like it's more than that. Depression, and this is gonna sound very harsh, doesn't want you to exist. It wants to take you out. That is its goal. You got the Green Goblin basically living in your head. And even if you look at Osborn, he was a good functioning dude, relatively, okay dad, and then he had this ugly green thing living in his mind, corrupting him, making him paranoid. And on top of the already overthinking, you make a very nasty enemy of yourself and whatnot. So I was going through that, and through high school and junior high with those demons, and it was very hard. I felt like school was a marathon, and I don't know, one-sided as well. Again, it did teach me a lot of things, and it's bittersweet because there were people that were trying to help me run the marathon, but there was also some people who didn't see the hope that I had, or how hard I was trying to meet expectations that they've set, and they grade me on. And I generally just don't like structure as a person. I think that is also another thing, is I know that I don't like rules. I like a lot of freedom in my choices. Some people love living in their boxes because it's simpler, it's easier to manage, and it's not chaotic. Unfortunately, I live in chaos and disarray, and I'm learning now as an adult that's okay to not have everything thought out and not everything meticulously planned. And I'm easily okay with some changes on a fly, where for some people that is inconceivable. But I have hit or misses with my schooling tactics, I guess, and not knowing a part of it was because, and especially as an adult, a lot of my problems were my ADHD not being found out early and not being called out, that I had such a hard time, and I just thought it was all in my head, and it was the depression's fault. I had to have something to blame, and immediately you're gonna blame the source, yourself, before you blame any of the outlying factors, which is really sad. Because there's nothing wrong with you. You just think outside the box. And it's perfectly okay. It's normal. It's natural. And you don't know how much the computer changed my life. I sucked at writing. I couldn't. Writing was very hard. And funny enough, I brought this for a demonstration. This is what taught me to read. Comic books.
Oh, hell yeah.
Big, fancy photos, pictures. Again, we hyperfixate on our interest. I loved comic books. I was DC, Dark Horse, Marvel, you named it. But, teachers would be like, spell phenomenal. And if it was in a comic book, most likely I've memorized it and read it. And that's how I learned how to read and spell, because you can't give me, Lord of the Flies and go, hey, read this. Okay, where's the pictures? Where's the things that's going to keep my focus? Especially back then, I didn't understand it. I was like, people can read this for hours and get a whole chapter done. I couldn't. I had to read it in parts and break it down and slow it down. Or one of my parents would read it to me. Well, I focused on, the paperwork that is, hey, you have to write an essay about this, or take specific words and find definitions, or whatnot. I couldn't do both. And again, another waving flag of, hey, there's more things here that need to be looked into. So I hope that a lot of people, neurotypical parents, can seek help for their child, especially when it feels like they're sinking. But unfortunately, I was in an environment where I felt safe enough to talk or, ask for help, because I was already getting all the help I think I could receive, and the bare minimum of what I could receive, which definitely can help. And then as an adult now, I'm like, man, I could have blown a whole horn on that. And now that I have near spicy siblings, I'm like, ask for every help you can get. Everything you can squeeze out that they know is going to help you. Don't be like I did. Don't be prideful. Don't listen to the depression that is telling you, hey, you have to do this on your own. And especially being the eldest of my family, I was setting an example. And I didn't want them to do exactly what I did. I want them to have way easier times going through and finding themselves faster and learning things that work for them and not the hard way like I did. Because it sucked. Everybody was starting on a baby mountain. I was trying to climb Everest without any gear. Basically, is what it felt like. I don't know how school felt for you, but that's how it felt for me.
Yeah. School for me was, well, I've gone over this in the last one of these talks as well, but it was not a great start up to things back in kindergarten, because while I definitely went through like preschool, so I knew numbers and letters and stuff, I wasn't at a point where I actually understood how they combine with each other. So when someone said, yeah, just go to this room number, that'll be your kindergarten class, I heard what was said, couldn't figure out what they meant by it, and went to the wrong classroom, wasn't understood for like half an hour, and then had to go into the next classroom, that was the right one. And not a great start there. Already looked like the dumb kid to make fun of. Then I went to a therapist who, my parents took me to a child psychologist who spent the whole time just talking to my parents, never once even looked at me. I was like,
why
oh
did they
yeah,
do that, man?
Yeah, it was like, oh yeah, sounds like he has ADHD. Put him on Ritalin. And Ritalin did the exact opposite of its intended effect, made me hyper anxious and stressed out.
Yeah.
So I became very fighty as a kid, very disruptive. And then after a few months of that, my parents were like, okay, this doesn't seem right. Let's go somewhere else and see what's up. And that's where my autism diagnosis came. At the time, it was called Asperger's syndrome, what I got, but that's been phased out for a numerous reason.
Yeah, same thing with ADD as well. That kind of got phased out and put underneath like kind of an umbrella of things for hyperactivity and whatnot. Yeah, I even got the same thing when I got diagnosed with depression. The first therapist only talked to my parents. They were like, "Why do you think she's sad?" I'm like, and like my parents were like, "Why don't you ask them? Like, we're here because we don't know. We don't know what to do." That's kind of what we did. And the first person I got sat down with, first of all, I made the first therapist I ever like fully trusted. And that's also another thing. I wasn't very transparent at that point because I lost a relative that I was very close with. There we go. Lovely memorial for him. Oh. But they were kind of my main guardian, especially when my parents split up. My parents had to work, and I got left with this secondary guardian who sadly, had an aneurysm and sadly passed away. So it hit me like a truck because I felt like the one person that kind of understood me and accepted me was gone. They weren't perfect. They had their issues and whatnot. Nobody's perfect. And when that happened, I got really depressed, unmotivated, didn't do schoolwork. I was falling gradually behind. So I went and, as a child, you're putting me in a room with a stranger on a couch and telling me to talk about my feelings. I don't know you. I wasn't going to do that. And one of the main things that you do when you're depressed is you build a punching bag character. You build a mask to hide behind because you feel unsafe. And it's very hard to remove that mask. And I began building one from my childhood up to that point. And the first therapist I ever got, I made cry and quit when I finally opened up. So not a great motivator. And there wasn't even like a good transition. She didn't like talk to me. It was just, I walked into an office and there was a new person. And I went, "You're not the last person that was here. Like, is she sick?" And they went, "Nope." They handed your case over to me, and we worked on our trust again, and I started opening up, and they instantly went, yeah, just give her Paxil, it's fine. They gave me something that you give to basically parents with postpartum out the rib, a very strong antidepressant, and I would get half, and it made me worse, just like yours. And obviously medication, this is individual experiences. Some medication works perfectly fine. It didn't for me. It made me numb. It really, I think, amplified my focus, like pulled my focus worse. And in addition, didn't feel like it helped any of the depression at all. It made me feel like a zombie going to schools and stuff and just going, hey, your feelings need to be in this caged up box. And that's where they'll stay, is what it felt like. And luckily, eventually, my parents started to notice. And I started to notice. And one of the biggest things that you do when you're depressed is abuse the substance or self-harm in other ways. And they began to notice that I was taking more than I should have, or, misremembering, because again, another thing that ADHD is, you're forgetful. You don't remember if you took your pills in the morning if you're not marking it down, so you're just adding more. And eventually I had an episode and was rushed to the hospital, and they went, yep, we're not giving that anymore. We're gonna actually sit down and talk this out. And luckily, the first right thing happened for me, where I got therapy and they diagnosed me properly with depression and worked with me on counseling and all that jazz to get a grip of my depression. Because again, I have basically something that wants to neurologically end my existence, and it is very much a shadow demon you don't expect. There's a reason why great people such as Cheshire from Linkin Park, Robin Williams, and other key factors of great depressions and great talents that seemed happy, but didn't, because they didn't either get help or, they didn't know how to exist anymore and felt very lost in themselves. And I am relieved to be here. And now I do food. Food is a big one, where you start eating healthier foods and certain foods that give you serotonin and dopamines that you need. Basically, I eat lots of oranges for that vitamin D and chemical balancing for food diets and stuff. And honestly, it's great. And also not living with the narcissistic parent is also another plus, especially when that person was kind of like, it's all in your head. It's not all in my head. You have behavior issues too. You just don't want to see it. So, I am relieved as an adult to finally have an answer. And like I said, I didn't find out about potentially the ADHD until my other siblings came with pamphlets and more stuff, and I went, oh god damn it, there's another missing puzzle that I kind of left on the back burner because I was so focused on my first neurological problems and my disability first and not other things. So yeah.
And just also one of the, I'm not sure how it is for ADHD. This is just something I know, at least for autism, is that medication side of things, where a lot of it's very common for medications, especially ones that are meant to affect the mind, the brain.
Yeah.
Don't work like they're supposed to. There's something going on with the changes in the brain that are making them go to different pathways.
Totally, and sometimes it doesn't even feel like they affect at all. They're just they're trying to throw magnets at a wall, and it's just not sticking. And they're trying to go, why is it not sticking? Maybe because you're throwing it at a wall.
Yeah, heck, this is an issue for me during times I've had to have surgeries before, and they would give me pain medication.
Yeah,
and it's
anesthetics.
Yeah, and it would wear off halfway through, or it just wasn't going to be full strength the whole time. Like, the worst time was when I had to get some of my wisdom teeth pulled out, put the Novocaine in, and they had to go to, like, pretty much the limit of what they're allowed to put in, and I was still feeling a lot of what's going on, so I was trying to ignore the pain that was still there from everything being ripped out. It's like, oh, why, body? Why must you do this to me?
Oh, that feels so bad.
Yeah, or waking up after another surgery. It's another one of the wisdom teeth ones, the one where they actually had to put you under for it. And I woke up in my grandpa's truck because my grandparents were going to be taking care of me while my parents were at work. And I woke up, I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be a fun time, is it? And then half an hour later, the pain came in. Like 2 or 3 hours before all that was supposed to start.
Oh.
Yeah,
just out of curiosity, does because I know some getting put into like a dentist chair takes a lot of courage to get in and know that you're gonna go through people again being around you.
Oh yeah.
Working on you.
Oh yeah, no, I hated it as a kid.
Over-censoring.
Yeah, I hated it as a kid, but I got more adjusted to it over time. Same with like going to the salon to get my hair cut. It was like, people are going to be touching my hair. Gosh darn it, I don't want this to happen. But then eventually, it just started feeling like very nice and calm and therapeutic. So I would get to the point of like, I just now almost fall asleep from the whole activity because it's just nice to sit down and feel like my head's getting massaged.
Meanwhile, my leg's moving the entire time.
Yeah.
And stuff. And another big like misconception with ADHD is you're not hyper. You're not, I wasn't a hyper child. I wasn't. My brother, the third child, was. He couldn't, stay still. But my mind never stopped. My brain challenged his brain to basically stimulate and do all these things as much as they did. And again, my fourth sibling started to call out my stimming when they came to visit me one time and was like, do you get overstimmed all the time? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, you're doing one task. You told me you were gonna, go make juice. And suddenly you have the baking tray out. You have all these other things that you just piled on and opened more tabs. When all you were going to the kitchen was to get juice for me.
Yeah,
and I had to sit there and be like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, that is a comparison I hear a lot from my friends who have ADHD as well, is that, it's like you're going on to opening up your browser because you're like, oh yeah, I want to make sure to check up on this YouTube video. And then while you're watching that, your brain is like, you're like, you know what? I heard something interesting. I'm going to go ahead and check the Wikipedia article on this too. Here's another tab. Oh, wow, that's an interesting word. I don't know what that means. I'm going to look this up. You know what? I just remembered about this dog I heard about before. I'm going to look that up now. And before you know it, there's 100 tabs up when you're meant to just do one thing.
You should have seen my school project tabs. They would be like, look on one guy. But I was like, but he had a wife. And he had children. What does this mean? And then, like, do you notice that his name starts with this guy's last name? Coincident? I think not. Like, you start turning into, like, a Clue murder case. I've absolutely have had people at my job. I work at the movie theater. And a lot of times I'm in the position of ripping your tickets. And the common thing I sometimes get is guests will ask me, hey, what time is it? And I will pull out my phone, say the number to them, put the phone away, and then instantly, not even a second later, I ask, what time is it? I just said it. I know what time it is, but I check my phone back again because I wasn't looking for me. I was looking for somebody else. And I didn't register it in my brain. And I didn't realize that was, again, a neurospicy thing to do. I thought that was normal. And sure ain't. Again, it's not a normal function, but it feels so normal to me to do. And I also start looking at like all my friend groups and going, I wonder how many of us we can diagnose right now. And I bet a good bunch of y'all will have something.
Oh, it's
think it's straight.
Yeah, it was a fun thing. Like the greater stream community I'm in right now, over time, it's just became understood. Oh, like 80% of people here are either gay, neurodivergent, or both.
Well,
How did this happen?
People were like, oh my god, they're gay, so they have to be neurodivergent. I'm like, aren't we all neurodivergent of some kind? Again, it's just different flavors and different spectrums and different things that also can pass as traits.
Yeah.
And again, we're still learning about a lot of them now.
Yeah.
And like when my siblings came to me with the brochure that they got, and I fanned it open, I was like, I don't even remember having a brochure as a kid. It was kind of just, hey, you're quirky. We're gonna put you in this classroom. That's it. That's all you're told. That's all you're done. Now you're getting actually spoken to like beings, being like, hey, we're noticing that you're falling behind in your reading curriculars. This is why A, Y, Z. This is how we're talking about fixing it. I'm like, man, I would have loved to have options. And that's like part of the big like thing I want for people in school, in jobs, in relationships. Have boundaries and have options, and really get on a comprehensive level with the people you're around about these things, and feel free to talk about these things, and understand that it is an explanation, not an excuse for shitty behavior. And that's a lot of the misconceptions of it, is that it's used as a shield. It's not meant to be your shield.
Mm-hmm.
It is meant to be a feature that is added onto your character that makes the journey a little interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, right there is also one of the struggles for autistic people is wait, no, I'm trying to explain this side of me here. I'm not trying to make an excuse. Me having to ask you what you said again isn't me not paying attention. It's that I heard the words, they just didn't go through. It's I'm not trying to be rude because of not looking you in the eyes. It just gives me pain. I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm just telling you what's up.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell you how I'm functioning, and I'm not trying to be difficult.
Yeah.
Not trying to, make this harder. It's got to go through the cheese filter of things also going on. And for me, I have basically limbo in my brain where it's constantly stirring up stuff, so like your information will come to me and out the rest. Another thing that like from school point of view, and I actually had to like defend one of my neurospicy siblings on this, is we all love the days at school when they would pull out the the TV cart and pull out Bill Nye and stuff like that, and they usually gave you like a piece of paper and they want you to follow along and fill in the blanks. That's not going to happen for a neurospicy, and this is why. you want us to focus on 2 tasks at once. One is very nice, pretty and shiny, and a voice you want me to listen to. And then you want me to look away. Tell me where the problem is here. You want me to stop looking at the board ahead of me. Where I should be focusing and where you want me to look, but you want me to do this at the same time, that is not happening. But, and this was the coolest thing, like the coolest theory thing I've done, is I had the same spicy sibling sit down, and I was like, hey, and a lot of the videos you can watch on YouTube now, and we pulled up the same one that was showed in their class, and I went, hey, watch this over again with subtitles however you want, and let me know when you're done. And they come back to me and they're done, and I went, okay, what is blank blank this, what does oxygen turn into when it goes into your body and comes back out? She went, carbon dioxide. She's listening because she focused. She knew what it was. She knew what it meant. The memorization kicks in. And that's one thing that I also feel is maybe, I don't know if it's not for every ADHD, but our memory is ironclad. Ironclad memory is the things we keep in that draw us to those stimulations. Or it could have just been me. But I was super proud of that moment that she could tell me what it was, and I helped her fill it out. But she focused on the project in hand, and after got tested on, the worksheet project. And not the same time. And I don't know. I understand that, again, teachers have a specific, particular way. Kids are going to learn differently. They're going to learn and do things differently. And that was one of them that I was like, I used to never fill out those sheets. And they'd be like, why did you not even try? And I'm like, well, what did you want me to focus on? You wanted me to focus on the lesson? I did. I focused on it. And I can recite to you probably most of the things Bill Nye said. But I can't look down, and the minute I look down, the audio clicks out. It's done. I'm not listening to Bill Nye anymore. I'm focusing on the sheet. He's gonna be background noise. Same thing when I play a video game and I pull up a Twitch stream. Unless you start laughing or making a lot of commotions, I'm not clicking the other tabs open. You are white noise for the spicy brains. And that's exactly how it works in school, too.
Yeah, always nice to have white noise. I can't do mindless tasks unless I have something to listen to. It's nice, even if I'm not fully comprehending what is being heard, it's just nice to have that comfortable noise, that noise I chose to be there.
And especially, as a teenager, a big thing is, again, if I'm not talking to somebody or focusing on another thing, if we hung up the call right now, immediately all of this static is coming alive, and it's going, you did very well, you're doing great, you did fantastic, you answered all the questions, you talked about everything, okay, what do you want for lunch, what do you want to eat, are you hungry? I'm hungry. And it's all at once. And then on top of that, whatever I have planned for the day also gets swapped into that of just hey, you want to be productive, let's go do something, want to go for a walk, it's everything all at once. Music shuts it out. If I'm listening to T-Pain, Kanye, things that stimulate, or Akon, I also had different and this is definitely probably just me, I have different playlists that matched a mood I was in. If I was angry, I would listen to more metal that felt and resonated with that. And then I would, if I was doing a task where I needed to focus, such as e-learning for work or something, I would play something instrumental. I didn't want lyrics. I needed something to kind of just stimulate and keep me focused at the same time. as getting my job done. Especially me wanting to be a writer. That is my goal. That is a pretty good passion of mine. Being ADHD and trying to make a book, when you come up with 1,000 more ideas to add on, you're like, no, I can't. We've done this before. You got a direction, stick with it, don't get off of the rails. Because you want to add so many more things to make it extraordinary, and I'm like, you gotta get some structure, or you're just gonna have a mess, and then you're, you know, depression kicks in of just, you're not amounting to anything. You're wasting your time. Nobody's gonna read it. Nobody's gonna like it. Yeah. Not everybody's gonna like what I write, but I'm gonna like what I write, and that's the more important part. At the end of the day, even when I also DM and build things for my players, they know I did my best, and I tried my best. And it's not gonna resonate with everybody, and that's okay. I try again. And I still beam. And that's also another reason I learned math better, was honestly counting dice. Having physical things to tinker with, and I still happily do the counting on my fingers, because that's normal to do so. Whatever you need to, tools or strats you learn is absolutely comfortable for you, is valid. Was there any subject in school that you felt like you struggled with more than others because you couldn't learn your particular ways?
So I was definitely on the different side of things going through school. Well, I mean, this is just about my side. I know when it comes to autism, everyone will go through school differently and what they learn and how well they learn. I am very much a hands-on learner myself, most of all. I can't do audio learning at all. If you just tell me directions, it's not going to stick. I need to actually get my hands on something and try to get it to work myself. So science was definitely something I really liked as well, because I could do the projects, I can do the experiments. English was the thing I probably struggled with the most, because I couldn't understand the structure. I couldn't understand what's going on here, which is I guess you can say a surprise, because my younger brother and I had like high school, if not college level reading comprehension back when we were in elementary school, but that's because we had our hyper focus, our special interest of dinosaurs because of Jurassic Park. So we were reading those high level books about them as little kids because we just want to know everything we could. That's
big time.
Yeah, and my brother loved books for a long time because of that, and was like, in second or third grade, he was like, you know, I'm gonna pick up this book called Moby Dick and just read all the way through it.
Yes.
Yeah, so we had we could understand the words, just not how they were all put together for a while.
Yeah, or what it meant.
Yeah, it wasn't until sometime in high school, thanks to some teachers that were very good, understanding of things as well, that actually made sure to help point out everything, that it became more obvious to me. I still have no idea what words are preposition, but it was nice to understand some of the rules.
A lot of people that I knew that were on the spectrum, and definitely in the lines with autism, struggled with some creative aspects, such as poetry and whatnot, and understanding how does words equal to a feeling, and or we would read Shakespeare and they were like, this doesn't look formatted right, and I'd be like, yeah, I guess that went in your mind processed that way, and we would have to break it down and explain a lot, which is fine, but from the outside looking in, I was like, man, I've never not had a translator. Like, I have like 5 voices for my translators. That,
Yeah.
something's comprehending this. I just don't know whom.
It's some of the things that did help me were like those good, cool teachers. Like, one made sure to teach that there is no one rigid way to look at a story. That's for him was like, listen, just as long as you give a good enough reason for why you think this is the theme or what's going on in the story, I'll give you an A on it, because that's how you view it, and that's what matters most.
It's getting the work done, not how you got it.
Yeah. Whereas on the sorry, go ahead.
No. You were finishing.
Yeah. Whereas when it comes to like the more creative side of things on like poetry and stuff, somehow I was already locked in somewhat on that. Like I mentioned it last time I did one of these talks, that one of the things to do was a project to write your own Shakespearean style poem. And I procrastinated on that for so long until like last second. And it's like, God, I'm just going to put something together quickly in a few minutes. Hope it works. Got an A and was congratulated on how good of a use of iambic pentameter I used. And it's like, okay. Didn't expect that.
Meanwhile, when I get like a poetry project, I have basically a meeting called in my head going, how do you want to approach this? I think you should do this. You should go overzealous. You should focus on this. Meanwhile, there's that one that's just like, you have 6 science exams that you got to study for on top of this. You can't organize your building blocks correctly.
Yeah.
And especially like getting tossed like another subject that is interesting. I am going to prioritize that new one before, my already due dates, my already, 2-week delayed math homework, because this is way more interesting to me. This is something I love and passionate about and, want to focus on. And, I excel at. I'm going to try to focus on what I'm good at and not what I'm bad at. And I was like, there's no way to get me good at math. And for some people, they can, see numbers in their head. And you mentioned that you do coding, so you see patterns and you put them together.
Yeah. I'm bad about putting down like blueprints and stuff. I like it all being in my head, which is a struggle for me because then I forget.
And my brain doesn't make space for that. It's already got packed up, hoarded information up there. Obviously, it wants to gobble more. That's the goal. That's what the brain wants to do. It wants all this knowledge. It wants to learn. Everybody's brain wants to learn and soak up as much as possible. Especially since I was more street smarty. Wisdom was my higher stat. Intelligence was rocky. Especially in the school aspect and whatnot. So, again, a lot of our organizing skills are super crap. Super crappy. And the biggest strategy I've learned is going and writing it down. Or, another thing, hyper-focusing is a huge thing, especially with my partner and me. Where he'd be like, hey, come to bed, come lie down. It's time to, get the REM sleep we desirably need for your brain to comprehend. I will start setting timers. He'll be like, hey, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, scroll TikToks, and then lie down, and I'll let you know when I'm lying down. And that's the cutoff time for game time or working on projects and whatnot. Because if not, I will be on all night. I will lose track. I will hyper-focus myself into exhaustion. And burnout's a really, really, really big thing that I think people with ADHD really struggle with because they want to keep going and keep getting tasks done and getting the check mark. The check mark is the goal. And Sometimes you forget check marks. Sometimes you cross things out and go, that's enough. Or sometimes it doesn't let you. So I had to learn strategies on how to navigate it the best, which was, again, writing stuff down. Especially if I have story ideas for D&D and stuff, I'm going to forget it in the morning. I'm going to forget it. I'm going to have 9 more thoughts come crashing in. Or if I have valid points. Even now, our discussion, I probably had 5 things I want to talk about. I'm going to forget about them, and we're going to hang up the call, and I'm going to be like...
Yeah, no, I get that as well there. There's definitely been plenty of times like, okay, alright, here's a common autism thing as well, is beforehand, when you know you're gonna have a conversation, it's, okay, here's the script, let's work on this now. Okay, here's the different steps, here's some good topics to bring up. Oh, here's some jokes we might be able to send out if the right time comes up. To some engaging things, we got this. Okay, here's me playing out what they're gonna say in response and how I would respond if that was what they said. Yeah, it's just all these things of like prepping yourself, and then in a moment it's like, oh shit, what do I do? This is actually pre-structured, I don't know anything anymore. You just go with your best.
Exactly, and like you try to predict it, and honestly, just live life thinking that it's going to be like a campaign. Honestly, you're gonna get tossed curveballs. You're gonna go off a different trail. You know there was a main objective, like you gotta go to the Wizard's Tower. Suddenly you ended up in the forest. You don't know how you got there. At some point, you're gonna go back to the Wizard's Tower. You just don't know how you're gonna get there yet. You're going on a little adventure with your mind. And you definitely have to, especially with ADHD, come out of your mind every now and then, because it's exhausting to live in your head and to let it kind of control you all the time. And I'm thankful now that I understand myself more, and I found that, you know, missing puzzle piece of, oh, that's the part I've been missing. That feels good, because nobody wants to feel lost and not understand themselves completely and know how to help yourself and feel helpless without that knowledge on how to do it. And I really like that now as an adult, because like you said, a lot of things are easier now because you're an adult and you've went through the experiences of being a child and with your differences. And I don't know, I like it that you went your way. And not everybody, I love hearing stories about your childhood and how it was impacted by having, you know, supportive parents or parents that tried to learn and adapt and grow with you and go, hey, things could be a little challenging for you, but we got your backing. Because I would have wished for that, but obviously I can't wish something true, unfortunately. If I don't have the support, I don't have the support, so I have to lean on myself. And friends were a big thing, especially my spouse. Like, I don't know who I'd be without Chris in my corner. Big time. So he has a lot of my gratitude, love, and thanks for putting up with me, because I thought I was the most difficult, challenging person he was ever going to meet. And again, I mentioned that when you have depression, you mask. He was the first person I took my mask off for, because I wanted him to love me and not the person I built to keep me safe when the environment around me was not safe. So, yeah, I hope everybody meets somebody like that, or has somebody in their corner that can make them want to be their best selves. Especially being neurospicy or neurotypical, and love you 3000. So Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very happy for you to have all of that support. That is wonderful. That is amazing. Congrats to you, and congrats
Thank
to
you.
Chris as well.
Thanks. We're about to celebrate our 12-year anniversary in
Oh,
June.
heck yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, we've been together since middle school. So
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah, kind of like grade 8 going into grade 9. So sophomore for you all and freshman year. And that's also another thing that was really funny is he's now starting to also learn that he's also neurospicy. And because again, it's just a chain of just, we didn't know this information and now we're trying to process it as adults. And another weird one that I found out that was kind of weird is when you're going up and down on escalators, when you're going down particularly, I get overwhelmed because it's my brain's understanding that it's going down. And I feel like, okay, but what if I trip?
Mm.
Or like, why does suddenly it feel very staticky at that moment or whatnot? And you just get on it normally and you're perfectly fine. But I'm like, why is going down so hard, but going up is just sailing? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's another thing that I didn't realize. And my, again, sibling number 4 had to greatly point out that I hesitate on the top of an escalator because my brain's trying to work out the physics of this or whatnot.
Oh, no, I can think of similar stuff myself. I don't know how much of a neurospicy thing this is, but I don't like elevators. I'm not a claustrophobic person. It's just it just fucks up my equilibrium. I have to support myself in like a corner holding onto the railings, or my brain feels like it's getting shaken up.
Yeah, how about like, just out of curiosity, like if you traveled for work or anything like that, like airplanes?
Oh yeah, I've been on airplanes before. I don't mind, but the ascension is whatever for me. It's the descension when the pressure starts to get changed up. I need to find a way to keep my ears from feeling like they're bursting. It just messes with them as well. Then again, I was also born.
Hard of hearing is a big one too.
Yeah, I mean, I had an ear infection shortly after being born and needed like tubes myself, so maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, tubes were interesting. I don't really remember much of that whole experience. I just remember my mom explaining that I was getting put under because I got my adenoids and my tonsils clipped at the same time as getting tubes put in. So I was dealing with, freaking like having freezies. I didn't know anything happened to my ears until I went back to school and they were like, "Hey, we're testing your tubes today," and I'm like, "Testing my what?" I got my throat fixed. What do you mean my ears? And they were like, "Oh no, your mom told us that you got tubes done. So we're gonna test that out." And now as an adult, I wear a hearing aid. Unfortunately, my job isn't very hearing aid friendly, so I don't wear it at work as often, but typically in a setting like my house, I tend to wear them sometimes. But a lot of times I live with earbuds or headphones on. But yeah, another thing is like, you see my background here?
Yeah.
Another thing that like Chris does is he'll stomp and I'll hear it on the ground. So, because he doesn't want to spook me out, but he wants me to, look at him, get my attention, and he knows I can't hear. My hearing is god awful. Like somebody could break in and I probably wouldn't know right now. I wouldn't hear it. But he'll stomp on the ground, or I'm also in a chair that swings a little bit, so he just pushes it and I feel it. So there's certain stuff you learn about yourself that you can adjust with, and again, the more you know about yourself, I think the better off you are. That's interesting. The elevators. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Any
the more
other
I'm thinking about it, the
ones?
more I'm certain it might be because of my ears getting fucked up at an early age now. Since that's where your center of balance starts.
Well, it's also just like it doesn't feel like the most safest place to be either.
Yeah.
It's a cable lifting you off to a specific floor, and you're trusting it to bring you back down. And claustrophobic or not, that's pretty jarring still. End of story. Trying to think if there's like any other like triggering circumstances or things that could trigger, but like I think I covered a lot of them.
Well, I have another thing to talk about, especially since we're pretty much like half an hour until our hard cap on this. We've mentioned this before, but this is definitely a big thing for any neurodivergent person, as well as like anyone else like with depression or anxiety trying to hide that, is masking. Trying to put on that face that looks like they're quote unquote normal. Like everything's okay with them.
Typical.
Yeah. Yeah, like, are there any ways you're comfortable in saying, like, how you feel you find yourself masking to others, or, like, anything about your own experiences with it?
Oh, boy. Funny enough, I believe it's... A lot of times when you mask, you don't know you're doing it until you come back to a conversation and go, hey, you were talking to somebody else. And that sounds not normal, right? You're like, who was I talking to? We talked for an hour, and I have to sit there and know myself and know when I got uncomfortable. Because a lot of times it's to avoid a conflict, whether it's a verbal one, a physical one, or again, just a shift of uncomfortability. Because again, it is your safe, your stoic face, so to speak. And I've absolutely have lied to people in their face and have to go, why did I lie to make that easier? That's not easier. Now they're just going to be mistrusting of me and think I'm wish-washy on them and flaky because I just didn't want to be in tune with my feelings in that moment. And that's really hard, especially when I was raised to ignore my feelings, especially being the eldest. I had to, like I said, set an example for my household. And unfortunately be not perfect, but like Luisa from Encanto. I had to be a second parent with my main divider, like I mentioned, where my parents were separated. So I became, the babysitter, and I lost a lot of my childhood experiences because I had to be like, hey guys, I can't hang out. I have to watch my siblings. Or the typical like, hey, can your brother come to the mall with us? I had to do that all the time. And it never felt rewarded. It always felt like just more expectations. So when you make friends and you start to do that, I was masking my home life as well. Because I don't want anybody to ever feel like they have to fight for my battles. And Chris started seeing through the cracks really early on in our relationship. He went, that's not very fair for you. And that's honestly really, really crappy that you have to sacrifice being a teenager to just immediately going from child to adult out the rip. And even worse is like, and I'm gonna say it like this because it's the best way I can describe it, is a lot of the reasons teenagers are mad is because parents have the expectation that they have to behave, but they're still viewed as a child. And you gotta pick a lane. Do you want them to mature and become adults? Or do you want to treat them still like a kid? with a little bit more responsibilities every now and then. You can't do both and expect both. You gotta pick one or the other. Like I said, I mentioned options and freedom. I didn't have a choice. A lane was kind of picked for me, and I had to be that expectation and go above and beyond for it. So I kept that mask a lot on. And it wasn't until like therapy where I started to pick apart the mask and notice and get like, my spider tingle when it felt like it was on. And then there's absolutely conversations where I come back to friends and go, hey, I totally blank slated lied to you about how I felt. And I'm so sorry. And I genuinely mean it from the bottom of my heart. I didn't try to. The conversation got heavy. And I mentally just couldn't handle it. Or knowing how many spoons you have that day to deal with stuff like that and be very boundary heavy, especially coming from, again, like I mentioned, a narcissistic household. Boundaries were brand new to me. I thought everybody kind of dealt with a very unhealthy relationship. Not everybody does, and everybody's experiences are different. But unfortunately, I was dealt kind of a shitty hand, and I had to work through it the best way I could, which masking and being depressed was an excuse, not an explanation, and not looked into further until I was, during COVID, having mental breakdowns and being like, why can't I be an adult? Why can't I be normal? Why can't I be what everybody wants me to be? And that's when the mask fractured, because it went, because you're trying to be something you aren't wanting to be and you can't be, because you're putting yourself in this filter of a person that even now you're lost and don't know who you are anymore because you've worn it for so long. And being happy and having hard times is normal in every emotionally, socially, and neurological experience, as hard as it feels and crushing it can feel. Especially also with ADHD, because I find that you feel things a lot more physically to the point, and I don't doubt it's not also for autism as well. You feel things super intensely. And because you've had to jump hurdles to gain that empathy and to understand all of that. So, no, I thank my friends for that, because it started to be safe enough where I felt like I didn't have to put on a facade or anything like that. But yeah, having a full COVID breakdown was probably my biggest resolution, and sitting with myself going, you're not happy because you're not you. You've never been really you. You've been whatever you wanted people to see for the longest time. Gotta figure that out. You gotta find yourself again and be happy with it. How was that like for you? Was there any masking you felt like you've done?
Oh, definitely. Growing up, I always thought of myself as a very open person who, my parents always thought about me as the person who would always say what's on their mind, consequences be damned. But
Blunt.
Yeah.
Or bold.
Yeah,
in their
just
mind.
also described as being a very blunt person. Like, not always understanding. Yeah, not always understanding boundaries because they didn't make sense to me for so long. I didn't understand, you can't just go ahead and make jokes with someone you just met as if you've known them for a year. You can't just immediately assume that you're gonna be best of friends with first interaction. So many things trying to learn along the way. And as I grew up and social orders got more and more of a thing in school and relationships in general, it became more confusing for me looking in, being like, what's all this going on? There's certain things you're supposed to say, certain actions you're supposed to take at these moments. I can't just act the way I feel like I want to in the moment. Wait, I'm not being expressive enough. I'm being too expressive sometimes. Like, feeling like tense joy, and for me, it's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely feeling that and expressing it, and someone looking at me like, why are you so stone-faced right now? I was like, what? Am I? I thought I was smiling like crazy. I thought it was a loud laugh.
You don't see how happy I am on the outside? It's not matching?
It's just a lot of, like, over time, not even realizing it, accentuating my expressions to an almost comic level to make sure people understand how I'm feeling. Or other times when other people are being quiet but I want to be expressive, learning to tone down. It is hearing someone bring up my special interest that I really want to talk about, but because of so many people getting mad at me for talking too long or being obviously bored very quickly, that I just start getting quieter and quieter in conversation, not being able to keep up with everyone. So instead of trying to go back into the subjects that everyone moved on from that I had something to say about, I'll just be like, just start getting...
It's fine.
It just gets quieter and quieter in group conversations as I just feel completely left out to just all these different attitudes of being like, okay, let me look from a distance. This is how everyone's acting at these moments. And these are all the expectations I've known about. Let me make a checklist to go over in my mind to make sure I'm not coming off as a terrible, rude person to these people. Let me go ahead and try to understand them so that way they don't call me weird, so that way they don't want to be my bully, so that way I'm not pushed away. And it just gets more stressful over time trying to keep that mask on. Just gets more confusing, more feeling like an alien trying to pretend to be a person. And it's tough. I'm at a point now. Oh, it's also a thing of like flexibility, having to learn how to change who I am around all these different people and hope I'm putting on the right face, which I still mess up on, where I'll go ahead and have a joke or something to say that I know is okay with one friendship group, but isn't the best with this other group, and it's like, oh, I just gave an inside joke to the wrong people. Ooh, oh no. Ooh, that's a bad look for me, and that just dwells in my anxious mind for a week.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, it's also just a point where the mask and me are too intertwined to fully separate anymore. I could not tell you where the boundary lies anymore, and I'm actually okay with that, because I'm still being me. It's just that I will go ahead and show that me in a different light to people instead of trying to completely change myself. I try to find a way to still be comfortable. Which
you're trying to chameleon with the mask, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm not letting the mask control me anymore.
Yeah. Big time, because you should never have the mask be the final say, and also your friendships and also stuff shouldn't feel silent. You shouldn't feel like you're unheard, and feel like you're miles away for sure. And the only reason I distance myself from the mask is because, again, depression is there, and the mask could be easily turned into a villain and used to hurt me in many, many ways. So I had to distance from the mask, but absolutely there are people who use the mask as boundaries, as boundary setters for themselves, because it's hard to see boundaries when it's not a physical thing that you can see and comprehend in your mind. So you build kind of the mask as a bumper to go, hey, these people don't like this joke. They're more conservative kind of people. This is the kind of humor they're with. They don't like a lot of small talk, yada yada. Go over to this person, they love talking about everything and everything, and you could feel more like yourself because you're like, oh my god, I could release. Another thing I stopped doing altogether, and this is probably pretty controversial, I don't go to family gatherings anymore. They overwhelm me. They overstim. And it has this great expectation of just like, and the first thing when you meet family, they're like, so what's going on with your life? And I would come back and I'd be like, nothing's changed. I like my life as it is right now. They're like, do you want to get engaged, married? Yeah, sure. But I'm enjoying my life in the moment. I don't plan for the future, but some people plan so far in advance. I can't do that. It's not me. It's not a part of me. So when family kept asking me these questions like, oh, do you still work at this job? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, where's the promotion? I'm like, I like my position. I don't want to go up. I'm content where I'm at. And I don't know, it felt judgmental even if they weren't trying to be. Obviously they want what's better for me, but they don't see how their words impact me emotionally. Where they're like, you should be reaching for the stars. I'm like, I'm fine on the stars I'm with. I'm fine and content and joyous where I'm at because they only see my progress. They don't see, the happiness I get playing a role-playing tabletop game. They don't see how happy I get living in video games. And again, I'm glad they have high expectations for me. Their expectations aren't mine. And I stopped going to family gatherings kind of altogether because it felt more like an interrogation. Instead of a joyous, like, get-together dinner. It just felt like, okay, I have to have 9 new cars, 5 new jobs, and I have to have this grand plan for my year to the table to present for my family. And I couldn't do that because I live in the moment. I do things on a whim. I'm impulsive. That's another, like, huge thing for ADHD is, did I plan to buy another Switch? No, I didn't. I didn't account for that. I just did it. And it's some things that you have to learn how to be controlling on and understand that, like, hey, you need to pay rent. You need to be responsible. You can't just be dropping loads of cash on something that you already have, but they just added a 2 to it and you want it. So yeah, I stopped going to family events because of how they made me feel. And obviously that's pretty heartbreaking to my family because they want to see me. But I'm no longer putting up with that expectation anymore. And I don't think that's ever going to change because they've always done that. So I just stopped doing that. And that's a boundary I've set. And it's been really hard because I want to be around my family. I want to see how they are and I constantly want to be in touch. But now I'm kind of getting in touch through texting and calls. And not planning. It's kind of heartbreaking, but I'm not putting them over my feelings anymore. And that's been a boundary I've love and hate because it gives me so much peace. But it makes me feel so distant and so cold. And sometimes feels like the bad guy. But I need to know myself and need to do what's best for me. Where for so long I didn't. I did what was best for them. So, yeah, that's another like big one. The people pleasing.
Yeah.
Aspects.
Oh, definitely a very neurodivergent thing. Turn into a people pleaser over time because you're afraid of everyone hating you.
Like I said, I mentioned I had a narcissistic parent, so I was kind of beaten to submission of fitting a mold that they wanted me in, and when I started to protest and, ask for rights. It was a threat on them.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah. And for me, my people pleaser side of things definitely has got moments where it was too much. One time, visiting some friends who were doing a hot pot, and one of the things they had was like kelp or something that was put into the pot. Very long bit of it.
Stringy textures.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna try this out. Let me go ahead. It's been in a few minutes. Surely it's cooked all the way. Wait, it's not chewing. I'll just swallow it. It's okay. Oh god, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. Meanwhile, my friends were having conversations with friends of theirs, and I was starting to choke. My face was probably turning purple at this point. I didn't want to make a noise because my mind was like, if I interrupt them, they're going to be mad at me. I can't be.
But you're also going to be dead.
I can't be rude, so I'm going to go ahead and hold on to this end, turn around, because I also don't want them to look over and be disgusted, possibly, and then just start pulling this out and enduring it all. Meanwhile, after it was done, and they see me just coughing, my face fully red from finally getting oxygen back, they're like, "Are you okay?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm good. I was just having trouble with this." It's like, you could have let us know you were choking. Oh my god.
Yeah, don't worry about my life. As long as you guys are content, I'm good.
Yeah.
God.
Oh boy.
As a friend, I would feel so bad, but at the same point, I've been there. I've definitely done things for the sake of just I didn't want the attention brought on me, because that's not what you want. You want to fit in.
Yeah.
But not stand out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into some of the closing things here, since we're pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, any myths about neurodivergence you would like to dispel? Just a quick, couple minutes on this.
Like I mentioned, you don't have to be hyper to have ADHD. Your brain does the running for you. That's the biggest misconception, especially in adults. And I find females are often very misdiagnosed because in a lot of households, they're the leads to keeping the household. So they're doing all these things that look normal, and that was one thing I've noticed even from my upbringing is the third kid was a boy, and my mom kind of let him get away with things where in certain actions with his neurodivergency that I could never get away with because I was A, the eldest, I had higher expectations, and B, just in general, I've been doing this all the time, so I'm just used to it. No, I hated it. I hated every part of it. People don't rage clean. That's not a thing. That is not normal to feel like you're overloading because you're getting hit with more tasks and stuff. So that's a big one. Is also, again, very different. People are going to have very different triggers and different, environmental effects from their childhood that are going to adapt into their adult life. So be very patient. They'll open up, hopefully. They'll want to open up on their experience, and you could kind of get a better understanding of how their brains work, especially with a lot of my friends being the neurospicy. I start to notice when they kind of curl into themselves. You can see kind of the signs, and definitely look into and watch behaviors. Because again, I mentioned I was a pretty observant child I became, where I was like, man, we're all weird. We're just all different versions of the X-Men. We all got our quirks. You got one friend who's super smart, like Xavier, who basically reads minds. And then you got one that's super strong, but doesn't want anybody to know that he is a big softie on the inside because he's masking this, and this for this type of reason. And I don't know, it made me feel more normalized in my day-to-day. So...
Okay.
but also don't go pointing it out.
Yeah.
Because some people don't want to hear it. But no, the hyperactive is the big one there, and understanding that there's different levels. Some people, it's the extreme, where, like, again, they can't be touched, they can't deal with certain things. Some things make them very overwhelmed, and understand that it took a lot of therapy and a lot of, going to counseling, therapy, medications, so have you, and also don't shame them for taking those methods. Mm-hmm. I think everybody, even neurotypicals, should be in therapy more often than they should, because it can kind of come up in different points of life. A lot of times you see it in your childhood, and where it's lying, it doesn't mean that it can come up later. Another thing I'm also going to dispel, vaccines don't do it. Again, genetics, big thing.
Yep.
Genetics, it just happens. Same thing with also like dwarfism. You can have two very tall parents and still potentially 1%, end up with a dwarf child. Same thing.
Yeah.
For people with neurospicy and whatnot. So any kind of thing that are going, the vaccine or the COVID vaccine made my child autism. No. You probably had it and you just are now discovering, because more information has come out since then about those things.
What's something real quick you would like to just say to other neurodivergent people?
Stimming's normal. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not. Fidgeting and whatnot, and being you is 100% acceptable. Every version of you is acceptable. And look at your intentions with your neurospicy. If you find it's causing you a lot of harm, definitely seek out some advice. Trust somebody. Let somebody in. Not everybody is out to get you, I promise. There will be incredible people out there who want to love you for all of you. As you are and as you come. You're not something that has to stay hidden. And the more people that come out, the better.
Okay.
Both gay and neurodivergent.
Hell yeah. And how about something you would like to say about your younger self about neurodivergence?
I don't really live with regrets, because if I didn't go through my story, I wouldn't know who I am today. So if I had to give a message to my younger self, and this is probably very huge for me. You're alive in 2025 and going on forward, and you're loved.
Thank you.
That's the biggest thing I could give to myself, because I didn't know if I would be here today.
And I'm happy to have you. I'm sure a lot of people are as well. Thank you.
Man. It's also been an honor to get to actually know you. I've only heard you through the grapevines of Jonathan and Tart and a lot of your inner circles. And I hope more of our circles collide.
Yeah, this was a great talk. Thank you so much for joining me today for this. This is very informative. I was glad to hear another person's perspective, especially someone more on like ADHD and with all your own hearing disability going on and everything. It's nice to get this other new perspectives things. Thank you very much.
Me too. I hardly get to hear more sides than just one. And thank you for letting me pop a look under the hood, so to speak. And to learn about you.
Yeah, it's been a great honor. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna start saying bye. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's been a great honor. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening as well. YouTube, goodbye. Hope you learned something and had a fantastic time. Bye now.